Well, I'm gonna turn to Bill first because I know he has the least time, and I'd like to
Yeah.
hear his second choice.
Yes.
This is not a offbeat film by any means, but again, it's the experience of watching it. The first time I saw Night of the Living Dead, and I, of course, had heard about this. It was legendary, and I can almost remember. We got the New York Times, and they would have a TV section with little reviews, maybe by Vincent Canby, I don't know, very pithy. And the review for Night of the Living Dead was something like amateur gore stuff, but the fans eat it up, let them. Just the basic contempt that the mainstream media had for horror films in general. But I had heard about it. And watching it was on 2:00 in the morning, Creature Features, Chiller Theater, whatever it was. The house was completely dark, silent as a house is, which it turns out is not very silent. Houses in the country make a lot of sounds. There's a lot of creakiness.
Yeah, they make that point in The Changeling.
Yeah, there's
And Skinamarink.
an awful lot of stuff going on there, and I'm watching this. And of course, it was brilliant. It's still a brilliant film. But to give you a sense of how crazy things were, so I'm guessing this is, I don't know when it was first shown on TV. It was filmed in 1968. I'm thinking this has got to be the early 1970s that I'm watching it on TV. It very quickly fell into the public domain.
Yeah.
So I guess anyone could show it. And I guess it was somewhat edited, but not much. But
No,
then
not much.
It doesn't really show a whole lot,
But I think the only shots that were initially edited when they distributed it widely was like a couple of the naked.
There's the
women who
naked
were
woman,
zombies.
you see from
And
behind.
there's a scene
And maybe
where
one
someone's-
shot of the munching down.
Maybe a
There's
little
a
of the
scene where the
gore.
intestines get
They
ripped
didn't
out.
edit
Which is
all the gore
surprising for
out.
the time,
But I remember seeing that at least some versions because I've watched it 1,000 times since. But here's the crazy part. When it got to the part where the people find the television and they're watching TV, then it cuts to basically a close-up of the television. So you're watching the television that they're watching. It's as if you're watching a newscast. And they actually, the station, Channel 11, I think it was, had to superimpose on the bottom something like a dramatization, just in case some insomniac wakes up at 2 a.m, turns on the TV, and is just hit with this War of the Worlds kind of thing of, oh my God, the dead are rising and devouring.
That happened to Ghostwatch. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I'm watching this like, what? Wait a minute. Like, it was so crazy. And yeah, that was just a chilling experience. And then of course I had, it got over 3:30. It's over. I turn off the TV. The house is sort of silent, and I have to creep into my bedroom. And I slept with the lights on because this had been quite the experience. That was really terrifying. And the people in this movie, much like I was, were trapped in a house with who knows what outside. It's like why I've never really warmed up to the ocean much. As soon as you get out there, you realize nothing from my neck down is visible.
Yeah,
And
no, I'm terrified of the ocean.
I'm in an environment that I'm pretty sure about this has been known to harbor horrible sea creatures with tentacles and teeth and all kinds of stuff. But
I love siege movies.
Again, but I did think of one film that actually did scare me in the theater, and that was Jaws. But a lot of it was because we saw it early on. It was the talk of the town. Everyone was talking about this.
Yeah.
Were you in junior high? Or
What year was Jaws? Was it
75 or 6?
75, yeah.
15?
I would have been 15, yeah.
Yeah.
And man, the tension in the theater, and I guess that's one of the things I do miss about going to the movies more often. Was there was a time when, first of all, it was more grown-ups.
Yeah.
15-year-olds were not the majority of the people there. Now they are the majority, and they're on their phones, and it just sort of breaks the mood and everything. But boy, the audience, and this was an audience, many of them had read the book. When was the last time you went to a movie where most of the people in the audience had read the book or any book?
It was
any
usually
book
just
at all.
me.
So
Me and my parents.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is your daily dose of old man yells at clouds, but I just want to say that there was a time when movies were made for grown-ups by grown-ups. The reviews for them were by actual writers, journalists who honed their craft and did not just talk in memes. And it was a different time.
This is why the real artists went completely independent, and some of them went studio, but they kind of went back independent, and they keep working, and they use tools like the internet and stuff to network, and they do get a lot of patronage from European people to make these. Like Abel Ferrara is a good example.
Yeah,
he just wanders around the world making movies.
Now, people argue that Jaws ruined movies because it was the first of the summer blockbusters, and it gave us that. But if people were going to ape Jaws, I wish that they had copied the technical brilliance of it, the editing, the music, the acting, the writing, all the parts that just came together in a production that should, by all standards of fairness, have been a complete and utter disaster. The making of that film was a great story, which I think they've made into a movie, haven't they?
A documentary,
I think so, yeah.
And yet it all
I
came
mean,
together.
the Italian ripoffs, I think they're of varying quality, but I find them humorous. Some are better than others. Deodato's one is well made.
Which one?
And the one by Ruggero Deodato, I think it's
Is
The
that
Last
Tentacles?
Shark. No, it's The Last Shark. That might be
The Last Shark.
Tentacles
is terrible.
But yeah, and there's
I just know Shelley Winters is
Jaws.
that's about all I know about.
Tim Tolbert talked about Cruel Jaws on our show a little while back, and I still haven't watched it all the way through. And there's one called Deep Blood, and they're both on Arrow. And I'm just like, I'm doing it. I'm gonna do a Deep Deep Blood, Cruel Jaws double feature, and see just how these Italians really break all this shit down with Jaws.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
I know there's a
about
Brazilian comedic knockoff of Jaws called Bacalhau or Codfish.
That's amazing. So is that good for you, Bill?
Yeah, that's good for me.
Can you sit in for us for one?
Yeah,
more
I
person?
can stick around for a little bit more. Sure.
All right.
Just a bit. I got hungry cats yelling at me. Shut up.
Yeah, mine's thirsty. So, Scott, you're gonna be here a while.
I can be here a while.
One cat.
What'd you say? Because your lips weren't moving.
She's a ventriloquist.
I thought you only had one cat.
You have one cat?
You. I thought you only had one cat.
I have one cat. I know you have a cat.
Yes, I have one here in the background.
Me and Francis are. You have 7 cats?
7 cats.
Don't judge me. How dare you judge me?
I'm impressed.
Oh, no, you should judge me.
I'm not judging
you. And you should not be impressed. You should
I
be
love
completely
cats. I don't
judgmental.
have one right
space
now.
for them to be happy and
you should
stuff.
hold me up
Great.
as an
More power
example
to
of
you.
what not to do. You should, yes.
Why?
Because it's a disaster having 7 cats. It's impossible.
But are you? I mean, if you're maintaining them
When
and
did you have
caring
7
for them, right?
cats?
That's not a disaster.
We have 3 litter robots. Those are ridiculously expensive litter machines.
That's the worst part of it.
Barely keeping up with it.
I can barely keep up with one cat with my back.
But they're
Same.
sweet. They are sweet. This one, I better not.
Oh, look at that baby.
Cutie.
Aww.
All right,
Angel baby.
Francis, tell me about this other film that just frightened the hell out of you.
Oh God. I actually only had that one film because Justin talked about it,
Flashback.
but I can say a bit more about it. In contrast with what?
Okay.
Wait, can you hear me?
Of
Yes.
course I can hear you.
I can say a bit about The Shining. I can say a bit about that. Comparison between the miniseries and the movie. I have to say that the movie was actually much scarier for me than the miniseries. I think the
What is the
miniseries was funny
miniseries?
because
I'm not familiar with that.
the miniseries
It was one.
there was one on
It
TV.
had the guy
and
from Wings.
Hold on,
and it
one at
was
a time.
closer to the book.
What was it?
Yeah, I can't remember the guy who played
Okay.
Jack Torrance. I know that Rebecca
It was
DeMornay played
the
Wendy.
guy
in this
from
one.
Wings.
You're talking
Steven
about
something.
now you're talking about The Shining, right?
Yeah, that's
But that was
the-
Justin's movie. Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna continue to talk about the Changeling. Okay, we can talk about The Shining a little
Oh,
bit.
I didn't know that you were
Okay, so
talking
go
about
ahead
the
with what you were
Changeling.
saying.
Okay,
I
'cause
didn't
thought
tell
we
me
were
about
supposed
the
to talk about two movies.
miniseries.
So I
Steven
thought,
Weber, that was it.
Stephen
oh,
Weber,
okay.
he played the good sweet guy in soap operas
Yes,
as a
that's
kid,
it.
and then he
Yeah,
played
yeah.
nonstop
That was
scumbags all the way up to the present.
Yeah, I knew him from Wings when I saw it.
I knew him from As the World Turns. Okay, go
that
ahead.
is the only movie I've seen him in. You know, that's it. For me, I don't know why, but I know the miniseries was partly directed by Stephen King, and he makes an appearance in there as well. But it
Basically, he
didn't
just told
scare
him
me
what to
as
do.
what? Yeah,
Basically, he
yeah,
just told him what the
oh,
fuck to do. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think he
Yeah,
really
and
directed
that's all the
anything.
Mick Garris films, from what I understand.
Yeah, Mick
I mean,
Garris
that's
is
what
kind of a
was missing
slack
for me was
director.
like, yeah, I mean, what was missing for me was like, okay, the one with Kubrick, it was interesting in its own right. I'm like, you have no idea when it's all taking place. I mean, you have like, it sort of flashes on the screen, like, this is taking place on
Kaylin
Saturday, then
said she'll be
Tuesday.
right back.
You have
Go
no
ahead.
idea what.
Kaylin
Wait,
just
what
said
did you
she'll
say?
be right back. Go ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So anyway, I just thought that the actual movie was more effective. I think that like the miniseries was trying to take off from. I mean, it was trying to be more real. I mean, more true to the novel, I guess, but it just didn't really work for me at all. I thought yeah. And did anyone else see it, by the way? Because it just seems
I
to be like,
saw
so
it.
much
I
more
didn't.
drawn
I
out. And I
I
think
thought it was
you did. Oh, you
decent,
did?
but it was nothing to write home about. It was the same
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
story, but it was not the masterpiece that the Kubrick film is, by any
Can
means.
I point something out? There's been 3 iterations of a particular character that I love, and of course I've been talking to y'all about it. And I forgot the name of the character. Damn it! But he's the magical Negro, according to some people, including Stephen King. And I'm like, dude, that's not politically correct anymore. But I don't see him that way. I see him as the master of The Shining, and he feels Danny, and his
Hmm.
power. So he
Mhm.
was played by Scatman Crothers in one of his very best, albeit small
Yeah,
roles.
yeah.
The scene where he's
Yeah,
like
that's
really
the Kubrick.
terrified. I mean, that guy had a fuckload of talent, man. I've listened to his music. He was in a Bakshi movie, and of course, he was on Chico and the Man,
Mhm.
and Blaxploitation. He could play anything at all, or sing,
Yeah.
dance, whatever.
When I was a kid, he
Uh-huh.
was the voice of Hong Kong Fooey and his voice of
He
Jazz
was,
on
yes,
Transformers. And
yes,
and
yes.
like Jazz was one of the
Oh, that
few
movie was
Autobots
okay.
who survived Transformers the movie, but then Scatman Crothers died, and they actually wrote his character out of the series by having him join a racing league because they didn't want to replace Scatman Crothers.
I don't blame him. But my point being is, so Scatman Crothers played him in the original. In the miniseries, Melvin Van Peebles played him, and that's the only clips I've really seen of it. And I thought he was fucking amazing. And then Mr. Dr. Sleep, Carl Lumbly played him, and he was fucking incredible too. So that's the one
Mm.
thread. And of course, in Dr. Sleep, he's still dead,
Mm.
but he's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
talking to Danny. I liked Dr. Sleep a lot. I don't care much for Mike
Oh.
Flanagan's early horror, or I haven't seen his TV stuff that's supposed to be so brilliant, but I didn't care for his early horror. I'm not interested generally in Stephen King stuff, and I don't like Ewan McGregor as an actor. But damn it, Doctor Sleep defied all my expectations. I thought it was a really good movie, and I thought it did capture King, but I thought it almost gave kind of a sideways thumbs up to King also, in that visually
Mhm.
it's a continuation of The Shining, and there's all kinds of callbacks to Kubrick's style, which King
Yeah,
hated.
yeah.
But the story itself is
Mhm.
right from the novel. So, and I thought Mike Flanagan reconciled them extremely well. And yeah, that was a good movie. Justin saw both of them the other night, by the way, at the Astor. So I haven't really talked about what he thinks about Doctor Sleep. I don't think he thought it was scary enough to talk about here. Um, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
thought with
Shining.
Doctor Sleep that it was also admitting that Kubrick was right, you know?
Have you seen Doctor Sleep?
Yeah, I've seen it. I admit I
Okay.
really was not keen on the plot. I just thought there was like almost too much going on. But I thought in a way that, with other scenes from The Shining, that it was really a nod back to, Kubrick and saying that
Well, Stephen King censoring her. Well, I felt like the development of Danny as an adult was incredible, and I felt like his talks with, our dead black chef were incredible, and I really felt like the way he's kind of forced to oppose, that evil being, the hat, the woman with the hat. Um,
yeah, yeah.
I just thought
Who played
he
her again?
really
I
was.
can't remember her name.
Hmm? Who played her? I don't remember. Um, but I just
Who
thought the
played
way
her?
McGregor handled it really, really well, and the direction was good. So I didn't think all the story parts were great, but I did like the idea that they had this little cult where they were like, searching for people with the shining to either exploit their powers and or kill them. And
Yeah.
it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. It reminded me kind of the X-Men. They're hunting these kind of
I thought it
freaks
was
who
like
have these
energy
powers.
vampires.
Yes, exactly. Energy vampires. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, so well, why
Now
don't
you
we
make me
pass it?
want to see it because I haven't.
Yeah, you should see it. I was just at it for a while, and then I was like, damn, this is pretty good. Um, so
Did you
Scott, you
read the
have the
novel, by
second.
the way?
Which novel?
Did you read the novel? Doctor Sleep.
I did not
No.
read the novel. I don't get into King anymore.
Yeah,
Well,
I haven't
Yeah.
read it either.
The only King novel I ever read was The Regulators, and I thought it was pretty bad.
I watched the early one. I read the early one.
I do want to read The Shining at some point because I'm a huge fan of the film, but I haven't gotten
I
around to
read
it.
I read a chunk of The Shining. It was good, but
It is a great book. It is a really great book.
Salem's Lot blew my mind, and the first version blew my mind. But um, I don't know. We just had a disconnect. I don't know how to explain it. It just happens sometimes. I love the script for Creep Show and his work with Romero. Um, so Scott, what is your second scary one?
Well, I didn't really have a second one because like one of the few
Oh,
films I thought was really scary was The Shining. Um, but there are some I do want, since we talked about it earlier, I did want to mention like some TV spots that really terrified me, and I will tell you, um, Cat's Eye, that little troll thing coming out of
I
all
had
that
that on the list.
terrified. Just seeing the commercial terrified me as a kid. I've never seen the film. Similar to The Offspring, which I want to see because Vincent Price is in it, but apparently it's terrible and he's just like a narrator character.
The older
And
Offspring. Yeah, okay.
and also The Stuff hasn't that I was scared
That's a
by
great
that.
movie.
I was scared by that TV spot, and the Charles Russell remake of The Blob had quite a terrifying
Hmm.
trailer for TV.
The stuff is
Um,
good. I love Larry Cohen.
I've read it. It sounds like a really interesting film.
It's
I
totally satirical. I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's not as much action and gore and hardcore horror or outer space stuff. The science fiction lies in the crazy properties of the thing they invent, the stuff.
yeah, I read the summary of it in the Encyclopedia of Monsters by Jeff Rovin, and I was both intrigued and disgusted at the same time. So I'm kind of interested in seeing it.
Yeah, it is kind of disgusting, but you just kind of go, well, it's some kind of weird fictional substance. I don't know what the fuck it is, but people
But
get addicted to it and all this crazy stuff.
yeah,
But
but
he's also
I do just want to say this with The Shining. First, the I think the atmosphere, it's both
Yeah.
inviting and terrifying. There's just something really off-putting about it, even though there's also actually looks quite pleasant. Just the interior of the hotel all that time. It doesn't seem like a horrible
Yes.
place to be locked up in, but it really just there is that it really just has a frightening mood to it, and the fact that it is just a guy who just goes crazy, and that is the scariest thing. The TV movie really emphasized the aspect of the ghosts a lot more and how the ghosts were influencing him. And in in the TV movie and in the book, he was writing a play and he finished the play, and Danny made sure that or that he saved the play and it gets performed at you see a little bit of the play being performed at the end of the film, and you
hmm,
see the burned up Overlook Hotel, because that's what happened to it in the book. There are still ghosts infecting it. You do see that in the miniseries, which I didn't. It had some moments. The moment of Jack with the croquet mallet rather than the axe was kind of effective in the TV movie, but it wasn't scary the way I thought the film was. And just the way the ghosts are at the end, and like
there's almost too much of
the
it.
strange
There's
costumes they're in, like the one guy is, it like foreshadows Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, and like at the end, and it's like the set is like clearly like some gay sex going on in there, it's not creepy. It's not creepy because of that. It's creepy just because the door is open and there are these crazy costumes.
Wait! Y'all are talking at one time. Hold on one second. Okay, Francis, say what you're saying. I got Scott, but I didn't hear you.
Okay, no, it's just saying that there is a scene of gay sex in the movie, and it's where Shelley Duvall is running through the rooms, and she sees the guy in the bear costume, or I forget dog costume yet. So you see
furries
just briefly there.
Yeah, it is a very creepy moment.
Yeah, the
that
furries.
you just and I was just saying, it's not creepy because it's gay. It's just creepy because of what's going on and the way Wendy is wandering around.
It's incongruous or surreal.
Yeah, I think that the bathtub woman is frightening, and I know my professor Dennis Bingham kept talking about that scene a lot. And interesting because Dennis Bingham, he has an essay on The Shining in Mario Falsetto's perspectives on Stanley Kubrick, and one of the things he talks about is the racial element. He goes into a lot of he really praises Jack Nicholson's line reading when Delbert Grady says the N-word and Jack Nicholson says it back as though he's repeating a word he has never heard before in his life, and he just considers that a brilliant line reading.
The brilliant thing would have been if Scatman Crothers would have heard that and jumped up and taken that axe and just killed Jack Nicholson. that would have solved everything.
Yeah.
But okay. So I'm going to talk about my second one, and I guess it'll probably be our last one. What'd you say?
What was that, Francis?
Yes, I was saying something about the little girls. I thought they were really scary in the movie. I remember, towards the beginning, they are creepy as hell, and then seeing those shots of them, like when Danny's riding his little tricycle, whatever it is, that scooter,
the big wheel.
What is it? The Hot Wheels.
He's a big boy now.
And then you see the scene of the girls sort of like massive. I thought that was really effective. That and also I think the bathtub scene was probably the best. When she sees
Scott mentioned
that. You see John Nicholson's. Nicholson's face. He's sort of turned.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of related to Dan because when I was little, I had a big wheel, but then I was never allowed to have a bike, so I kind of related because I used to ride around the block on a big wheel all the time.
Well, I mean, I would describe him, the term that was popular then and has kind of come full circle, but I would describe him as autistic. I've always thought that about the character. I thought that was one of the points of the character, but he's got The Shining, so he's really not as
he's supposed to be a genius in the movie. Yeah, he's supposed to be a genius. I think there's one part where he goes to the doctors and he's saying, "Oh, your boy's IQ is like off the charts," so he's supposed to be like brilliant.
But in Dr. Sleep, he's very reluctant to keep using the shining power for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Anne Jackson had read the novel and she was terrified that they wanted to cast her as the woman in the bathtub. She's like, if you want me to play the woman in the bathtub, I'm terrified. I don't want to play that part. And I said, "Oh, I want you to play Danny's doctor." "That's fine. I'm willing to play Danny's doctor."
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me
also one more thing. If it's got like snakes in it, Manhattan Baby was an effective film, but that cobra
we know
going
all
around
about
all the
your
time
snake
scared
phobia.
the shit out of me. That
that
is a phobia.
We'll keep it away from you.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so the last one I want to talk about is Unpredictable. It is a horror movie. There's a lot of people don't exactly class it as one, but people who are kind of know cinema, some of them class it as one. It's an epic 3-hour film that came out in 2006 by David Lynch called Inland Empire. So if you get through the whole 3 hours and you don't think it's a horror movie, then you need some heavy medication. Uh, because it is the closest thing to nightmares I've ever seen on film. And it's relentless, it's mind bending, just quick thing. It's a few stories that intertwine, and then intertwine kind of at his leisure. Not much rhythm to it, but they do eventually come together, sort of. And Laura Dern basically plays an actress who is playing a character, and then her co-star is playing a character, and their characters having an affair, and then it bleeds over, and they start having an affair, and then the man, starts talking in the accent of the character and calling her by the character name. And so by that time we built all the way up to where they're cast, first of all, a gypsy for a gypsy seer played by Grace Zabriskie, of course, comes in, and she's Eastern European, and she just warns Laura Dern's actress character Nikki. She's like, this is dark. This is dark. And she's like, her reaction is like, oh, and she's like, I'm talking about fucking murder, and Laura Dern's like, I think you should leave now, because they have this like whole, what do you want to call it? Professional managerial class kind of house. And, but a notch up since she's in Hollywood. And, so they get rid of her, but the things she said, she talked about the boy, she talked about the book, and there's all these clues and Lynch actually went to Poland and filmed the Polish part of it in Poland in the snow. And it's like the backstory. It's like the thing that haunts the modern characters. And so people intersect. And of course, to no surprise, the doppelgangers emerge because that's one of his favorite themes, identity. So once Laura Dern has sex with the guy and he's doing that, she freaks out, and then she starts picking up on things she had heard, like from the old lady and other sources, and talking about what she's seen in her dreams. And so it starts to happen, and it's so creepy because it's exactly like dreams. She's like thinking of this place, she's just aimless inside her dream, and then this place is recognizable to her, and within the dream she's lucid and recognizing that that's what it was supposed to be. Is this reality? Is it a dream? And it likes a dark alley, and he used the dark alley thing great in Mulholland Drive too, like what's behind the building. And so she goes, and it's just, at one point she finally arrives from the set into, well, what you think is a set, but she's arrived into the reality of the characters, another reality of characters she's playing. So this is kind of it's the character she and Justin Theroux and company are playing, and now they live in this kind of house that was a set before, and it's like he's kind of an asshole, and that she's got a new husband, played by a Polish guy, I can't remember, but he looks a lot like Eric Bana, but it's not him. But he's like super possessive. He's from the old world, and he deliberately talks to his friends in Polish, and she doesn't understand it, and she thinks their whole culture is crazy. And this is all conveyed through very little dialogue, really, at that point. And so, once again, it's like her house is a crossover into another reality. So suddenly the guy, Justin Theroux, comes in and starts beating on the window. Now, in his reality, he's still in the studio from earlier, and he's going to the set. But now he's beating on the window of her front window while she's now living in this reality. And he's like, come on, what's going on? So she finally has kind of, I don't want to call it a fugue state, but she finds herself in this weird building. She goes upstairs. It's dark, and she's there to be interrogated by this guy. It's very Kafka-esque. There's no reason she's being interrogated. There's nothing. The guy's very deadpan and dry, writes stuff down, and she starts just I think Laura Dern did improvise a bit of this, but she starts just kind of inhabiting this character, this kind of white trash character, to the point where now the character is almost another character. So she's now 3 times removed from Nikki, and so she just starts, talking trash. I was in bad shape. I had to turn tricks. Let me tell you about Joe, and it just goes on for like 10 minutes of this. And it's interesting. It's definitely a cool monologue, but and then the guy's like totally emotionless. And finally, she goes to this theater, and again, it's very much like a dream. So the theater's dark. Why would she be in a theater? It's going to close in the dark. So, but don't some of us want to do stuff like that when we're kids and do scary things? So she goes up the steps of the theater. She goes and see what's on the theater, and what it is footage that we had seen in the beginning credits, and it's of the Polish girl who was abused by her husband, and there was a cursed film made about it, and so the film didn't get finished, and so some of the footage is extant, and then the rest is really like you got to figure it out, because in her redneck identity, right before she went to this building, suddenly she's married to the actor who plays the Polish guy, and he is a Polish guy. Whereas before she was married to him, he was playing a different character, and he's got a bunch of Polish people around him, and she's like totally confused by their culture. I mean, Lynch really exaggerates it, but he makes clear that to somebody in a total mindset, this would just seem crazy. But also, there's something menacing about it, because it seems like they kind of maybe want to do her in at some point. And they're all kind of laughing about it, and she doesn't know what they're saying. So she goes up into this theater, and a lot of things happen. Her face transmogrifies, and she sees that movie with the Polish girl crying, and she's listening to a record, and the needle's running, and then you kind of start into sequences showing those girls, and they're in the streets of Poland, and that's where the story began, with the real Polish people. They made it into a movie, and then it started infecting this movie, and it's amazing because one of my favorite sequences, which is not scary but incredible, is so she just starts hanging out with those women, not in Poland though. I mean, you see the flashbacks or maybe meanwhiles, and then in America she encounters them. And one of them is played by David Lynch's wife, and of course she's much younger than him, and she's insanely beautiful and in an exotic way. And so they're all talk to her, and they're all like sitting around talking trash, and showing their boobs, and getting high, and then they're telling, they start telling Laura Dern's character, hey, come on, man, forget about it, just have some fun. And really, they talk just like girls of that age did in 2006. I mean, and it's just so funny that he married one of them right after that, and they had a kid. Actually, that she's been a real helper to him on Twin Peaks: The Return and stuff like that. So all of a sudden, the lights get pink and pastel, and the nine women, who I call the 9 sacred prostitutes. I'm gleaning that from things they say during the dialogue. So the 9 sacred prostitutes get up and dance the locomotion. I love that song. It was the original. I wish it had been Grand Funk. I like theirs better, but and just do that for like the whole song in real time. It's incredible. And then it gets dark again and weird. So it's like he keeps fucking with you. And suddenly I don't know if there is an end per se. I mean, she ends up on the streets in the gutter, and she starts hanging out with these people of different races and homeless people and druggies, and they start telling her these outrageous stories. One of them's particularly incredibly gross, and she's just hopeless. And finally, the woman who was married to the guy in the movie and in the acting, the two sides, the woman who was supposedly married to the one she was the lover of, played by Julia Ormond, and she's playing, a prim, proper character in both those. But earlier in the movie, there's a little scene where they find her wandering away in regular clothes. She goes to the police. She unbundles her stomach, and she's got a screwdriver deep into her body, and it's hurting. And the policeman's like freaking out. This is shot in like really weird def video. The whole movie's shot in video. Though most of it looks like film, and the rest of it looks like just very artistic choices to emphasize certain things. And so finally, Julia Ormond just magically is staggering through the streets, and now they're on Hollywood Vine, and they pass Mulholland Drive, and they've been in the Inland Empire, and so these are all important. To me, these are alchemical and magic whistles that Lynch embeds in his work. Like being in the right place, the right setting, the right time. That's a very Timothy Leary kind of idea. It's a very Crowley kind of idea, an alchemical idea. And so she's literally, they're filming it, and Lynch was handheld filming this part. And the interviewer's like, "Did anybody bother you doing this?" He's like, "No, it's Hollywood Boulevard on a Sunday night. They're doing their thing, man. They know we're in Hollywood. Why? What do they care?" And so he's filming it. You don't know he's filming it. He's the one filming it. And she lays down with these degenerate people. I mean, I'm not knocking them because they're homeless, but they're really like got some crazy stories. And she has been stabbed in here by the same screwdriver. Julia Ormond took it out and stabbed her. So she's dying, and she staggers around dying. And so it's like, wow, you've just seen this character who was supposedly a real rich actress degenerate into this, go to another character and then kind of a riff on that character to where she's like literally in the gutter, and she dies. But when she dies, there's the Jodorowsky Holy Mountain thing. Camera, pull back. It didn't say it that way. And Jeremy Irons, who had been directing the movie that they first were in, he's directed this scene, and none of it's real. And Laura Dern's character, or I can't remember which name at that time, she gets up and she just staggers out like a zombie off the set. And then they have the conclusion, and it's a giant musical number for like 5 minutes of credits, if not longer. Music's great. It's very reggae. And all the characters in the movie are there. But not only that, because this is like stories within stories. This is like some Neil Gaiman kind of shit. All the characters and people that they told each other stories about, even the really gross ones, they're there too. So it's fun guessing who's who. It'll go by fast the first time, but me and my ex-wife were like, "Oh, there's the woman they talked about, the gross story about, And so it's one of those, it's got so many layers and it's so meta, but it really fucked me up. By the time I got to that last scene, I was like, this is so delightful. But, I was creeped out in the latter part where she's degenerating. But a lot of the thing is that the difference between the dream world and what's being shot as the movie, what's the real world, and you go through these portals because Lynch is obsessed with mystical portals, obviously.
Yeah, yes.
And he opens these doors, and suddenly you're in another and it's just, you don't expect any of it, and even the stuff you expect, you're kind of like, "Oh yeah, I've had this happen in a dream," and you see it, and you're like, "Oh God, no, it fucked me up." And so
Probably
it's
like
one of
He-Man, the Masters of the Universe, because they walk through those portals all the time.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of people use that, but Lynch is, versed in magic, and he's deliberately using a door to dream, a door to death. He uses all this in Twin Peaks too. So in this movie, though, it's like you're just enveloped in the nightmare of this particular character. And Laura Dern helped pay for the movie. She was the executive producer, and she's unbelievably, incredibly talented acting. And David Lynch played a prank. And he got a cowl from somebody, and he wrote some giant sign for the cowl to wear and walk along Hollywood Boulevard. And it's basically like Laura Dern for Oscar for Best Actress for Inland Empire. And eventually they chase the cow off, and but she should have been nominated. I mean, that was really his point. That's why he put it right in Hollywood. Like, if you don't get it, fuck you, but this is how it needs to be. And that's the kind of person Lynch is, and he's a visionary, and he rarely slips up. He's usually like a laser beam. I loved this movie. I mean, it was just about my favorite Lynch until The Return came on. But if you haven't seen it, I recommend. It's 3 hours. But I recommend, unless you have terrible ADD and can't control it, I recommend immersion. Like, just start at the beginning and just keep watching, because you are going to start feeling like you're in a nightmare, and that may be off-putting. Only the first 35, 40 minutes have a plot. After that, it's just riffs on the plot and dreams and flashbacks and other realities. But anyway, it
Yeah, I
scared the
want to
shit
see
out
it,
of
but
me.
I got it from the library and it was damaged. So after 15 minutes, it froze and shut off.
Those motherfuckers damaging a Lynch
Yeah,
movie.
they
How
had
dare.
one copy, and I was 34th in line for it. Finally got to me, and it was a ripped up piece of crap.
See, if you'd had a more
Oh,
magic number,
that's
you could have gotten
disappointing.
it like 23.